On my lands, my friend, have I got an amazing guest, an amazing show for you today. If you're brand new, you're going to be blown away. If you've been tuning into the show, you're going to be blown away because my guest today has got a story to share about success in real estate investing that very, very few real estate investors have. And I tell you what, in this show, you are going to learn a ton about raising private money for your real estate investing deals. Well, I'm Jay Connor, the Private Money Authority, also the host of this show, and I'm so glad you decided to join us. Now, why in the world am I called the Private Money Authority? Well, I've been doing this thing since 2003 and have raised millions and millions of dollars, just like my guest today. And wow, you're in the right place at the right time. So just a quick little overview of my guest, and then we're going to dive right in. First of all, he's been in the real estate industry since 2010, which means he was about 10 years old when he started. But anyway, I'm just kidding. He began his career as a realtor, but he quickly learned he just didn't want to be in real estate to earn tips. He actually wanted to make some real money. So his story really began in 2015, not many years ago. And he only had $10,000 in the bank, but my land, did he have a vision in his head. He started flipping houses with only $10,000 in the bank back in 2010. But since that time, he has flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes. He's purchased hundreds and hundreds of rentals. And in addition to that, he's also opened up other multi-million-dollar businesses, and he's amassed, check this out, over 1 million followers on social media. And it's on that social media where my guest actually teaches others like you how to build wealth and how to really enjoy and get freedom, which is, what you really want. And on top of that, what he's an expert at is helping you become wealthy without sacrificing everything. In other words, you don't have to work 60, 80, or 100 hours a week in this kind of business and lose all really what you want. And that is spending, valuable time with your family to actually build a better future. So, your fitness, your health, your family, your faith, people you love, things you love to do should never, never suffer when you are in the pursuit of financial freedom. And my guest has figured that out exactly how to do it himself, and he's ready to share it with you. You see, he works less than 30 hours a week running how many? 6 separate businesses that generates tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And again, check this out. Just 7 years ago, he only had $10,000 in the bank. So how did he do it? We're going to ask him that question as well. Well, of course, a big part of that is automation. We're going to talk about automation, how for you to run your business and not let it run you. And my guest, like you want, is able to spend time on the things that are the most important to him. And with that introduction, my fellow mastermind member and friend, welcome to the show, Ryan Pineda. Hello, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Jay, that was the most epic intro I've ever seen in my life. Holy crap. I feel like, man, just tell me that when I wake up every morning and I'll be good.
Well, you see, since we are recording this episode, I'll send it to you from my voice memo and you can just play it in your earbud.
There we go.
But Ryan, I tell you what, you are a rock star. I'm just honored to be in one of the masterminds with you that we share together. Collective Genius, Jason Medley, one of my heroes as well. And I tell you, Ryan, you've got so much knowledge, you got so much experience, you got so much to share that you have learned in such a short period of time in 7 years. So let me first just start with this. I'm going to cut the BS question of how did you get started in real estate, because really nobody cares. I'm going to go ahead and just get straight to the first question. And that is, how does a guy like yourself, how old are you now, Ryan? How old are you now?
33.
You're 33. Okay. I want to throw up. So you're 33 years old. That's a compliment, by the way. Yep. You're 33 years old. You didn't start in real estate until a short 7 years ago when you were, whatever that is, 26 years old, right? Yep. How does a 26-year-old with $10,000 in the bank go from there to where you are today, generating millions of dollars in revenue, 6 different businesses, spending time the way you want to spend time? How does a guy figure that out and do it? What are the key elements?
It's funny, man. I never wanted to have all these businesses. For me, it was always just about figuring out one way to do something really well. And fortunately, I got pretty good at flipping houses, and that kind of parlayed into everything else I did. I remember I made my first $1 million doing that, and it was crazy, especially considering how fast it happened within 3 years of starting flipping, like you had mentioned. But from there, a lot of people wanted to know how I did it, right? So we started an education company, and then, that becomes a pretty big deal. Then people wanted to know who's my accountant. And so, him and I start our own company. I lure him away from his company, and we do our own thing. So then that becomes another business. And then people want to invest with me. So we start a fund, and, then Pineda Capital is born, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And my most recent company, I actually just launched last week for an NFT project that I'm doing for real estate called Tykes. And, at that launch in the last week, we've made $1.7 million in NFT sales. So my point is,
tell our listener what an NFT is.
Yeah, an NFT is a non-fungible token. It's one of those, people make fun of them. They're like the JPEGs that people are paying all this money for. But they're much more than that. I've been really a big advocate of crypto and real estate, and why I think that it's going to completely change the game. I think that real estate's going to be on the blockchain for chain of title. I think funds are going to be tokenized, and they're going to become much more liquid than they are today. And that's what Tykes is all about. And so, yeah, it's exciting, man. I don't plan to start any of these things. That's kind of my point. I just am very visionary, and I kind of see where things are going. And instead of just kind of saying, I think it's going to be there one day, I actually do something about it.
What are your personal attributes that lends to your success? I mean, before you answer the question, there's just not many Ryan Pinedas walking around on the planet, but there could be a lot more Ryan Pinedas walking around on the planet. When someone understands what are those personal attributes, what are those personal disciplines, what is it that really lends to that level of success?
I would say, for those who don't know, I used to play pro baseball. So I got drafted by the Oakland A's in 2010. And so growing up my entire life, I was very dedicated to sports and really anything I did, right? Like I took that kind of work ethic and discipline from sports, especially for what it takes to become a pro athlete. Obviously not many people do that. And it was just very natural for me. Like when I came into business that, you take that same approach. Like you've got to put in the work, you've got to get repetitions. It takes a ton of time. You need great mentors and coaches to get to the next level. And, you've got to be good under pressure. And so sure enough, by the time I had retired from baseball in 2017, I had built all of these skills and habits and this discipline that was kind of, I would say, stronger than everyone else. And just kind of my ability to focus at whatever task is at hand. I pretty much learned all of that from baseball. And I never would have figured that out in business. Even in business today, I've yet to really meet anybody that understands, unless they played sports at a really high level, that it really is different. And so when I go on stage, or I start a new product, or I do a podcast, or I do a piece of social media content, I am 100% focused on it. And I'm giving it everything I've got. And then once it's over, it's gone. I've already forgot about it, and I'm on to the next task. And then I'm focused on that. And I think a lot of people don't really have that ability. They kind of dwell on a lot of things going on in their life. They let stress and anxiety and these things affect what it is they're doing at hand. And so I think you got to learn to compartmentalize and separate all the tasks and the things that you've got going on in your life and really learn to focus and have discipline.
A dear friend of mine, to complement what you just said, a dear friend of mine told me a phrase or told me a sentence or a definition last week I'd never heard, and you're going to love it because it complements exactly what you said, and that is being focused in the moment. He said, Jay, do you want to know what the definition of heaven on earth is? I said, yeah, man. What's the definition of heaven on earth? He said, the definition of heaven on earth is living in the present and totally in the present, as opposed to, he says, you want to know what hell on earth is? Yeah. Tell me what's hell on earth. He said, living in your imagination and worrying about what may happen in the future, and or dwelling in the past and living in the past. I said, man, I don't want to be hell on earth. A lot of people sort of do that. But you're right, Ryan. I couldn't agree with you even more. As you just said, being totally focused on what's going on right now, it's done, and then you move on. So, yeah, I mean, you being a pro baseball player, no doubt, the disciplines that you had in place for that, as you just said, have carried over into business. What daily habits do you have that you will not let go of? Because you know if you let go of these daily habits that you're about to share, it would affect your performance.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a few daily habits, but one thing I'll say too to conclude that point is a lot of entrepreneurs want to really like focus on the future and plan and do all this stuff. And I've very much been an anti-planner. In fact, I do not let people schedule anything with me beyond like a month. I won't schedule anything, period. Because I just don't like planning my life out. I like living in the moment and I like being flexible and kind of taking advantage of the best opportunity that's in front of me. Case in point, you had asked me to be on the show. I think it was last week, right? And so for most really busy people, they're like, oh yeah, let's schedule it, a few months from now. My schedule's packed and whatever. And I'm like, yep, all right, let's do it next week. Whatever. Like we'll get it done because my schedule is open. It just gets filled with like whatever the opportunity is for that week. I was in Florida yesterday. I just came back into town and I was filming with Patrick Bet-David, if anyone knows who he is, really big entrepreneur and social media guy. And it was great, but it was funny because when I got when I was going to go there, we had booked it like a week in advance. We had just heard from his team, like, yeah, you can come Monday. And we're like, great, we'll do it. Right. My schedule wasn't too busy to prevent me from a big opportunity. And the day before, right, I'm thinking, okay, like, all right, how's this going to play out? Like I'm preparing for it mentally. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't even book a hotel or anything yet, And so it's just like, I'm always so focused on whatever it is that day that I just worry about the next day when it comes, and a lot of people get scared about that because they want to be super prepared, but I actually enjoy adapting to the moment, and that's very much like it is in baseball. You just don't know what you're going to get until that day. You don't know what pitcher you're going to face. You don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know any of that stuff. And so you got to just be prepared all the time. So I like living like that. It's not for everybody, but I think it's why I've been able to move and pivot so quickly because I'm not tied into a specific strategy or thing.
Well,
But
Ryan, before you answer that daily habit question, you're living out exactly what Jesus Christ said when he said, be anxious for nothing. Tomorrow has got enough worries of its own. Live today. And of course, I'm paraphrasing scripture.
Yep.
But you're living it out. I mean, Christ himself said, don't think about tomorrow. Yeah. It's got enough worries of its own when it gets here.
Yeah. And to finish that verse, I'm a devout Christian. He talks about how the birds don't clothe themselves. Do you see them worrying about where they're going to eat the next day or how they're going to be fed? No, birds don't worry about that. They know that they're going to be fed. And, in the paraphrase, he says, well, how much more is your heavenly Father going to bless you than the birds? Right.
Absolutely.
So I'm with you, man. And that's for me anyways. And like, I don't know how faith-filled your audience is, but for me, faith plays a huge role into why I live that way. Right. Because
I can tell you, Ryan, the listener is faith-filled, and I can tell you why. I believe that we attract people into our lives that are like ourselves. I tell you, I don't know, Ryan, who came up with the phrase opposites attract. That's stupid. I want to hang around people that are like me, right? And so I talk about my faith all the time. And so since my audience hears me talk about it all the time, I've already run a bunch of people off and they're not here anyway.
Perfect. Perfect. I could talk about anything. So one concept that your audience will resonate with then, and I don't get to talk about this a lot depending on the podcast I'm on, but it's like, look, if we are trying to really live the way God intended us to live, we don't want to make our plans and our will. You know, we want to submit to whatever God has in store for us. And we can't really do that if it's just me. This is what I want to do. This is my life. It's like, no, dude, you know, every morning I pray and I'm like, God, however you want to use me and put me in whatever situation or opportunity that you see fit. And, you know, just let the Holy Spirit guide me for that day. And that's it. It's literally that simple.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you, man, because, you know, I've got a dear friend that asked me this question that I'm going to say, and this plays into what you just said. And she asked me this question about 3 years ago. I'm 61 years old now, and I just love work. I don't even view my work as work because it's just what I do, you know. And she says, Jay, when is enough enough? And I said, what do you mean? She says, why are you still working, you know, the way you work and you're so passionate about it when you don't have to? When is enough enough? And Ryan, you know what my answer was? I said, Mary, enough is never enough because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
If it was about me, enough would have been enough years ago.
Right.
I could sit on the sofa all day long, eating Cheetos, watching, you know, Andy Griffith if I wanted to.
Yep.
But enough is never enough when it's not about me. And I tell you, you know, I tell my friends and audience all the time that, you know, every time, and thank God, and that's not a curse, that's a genuine phrase. Thank God that I matured out of this problem decades ago. But every time I got involved in an opportunity to make money, and the only reason I was involved was to make money, I never made any money.
It never worked out. Yeah.
I never made any money, right?
Yep.
But when the reason was bigger and I was passionate about it, and I could really move forward with a servant's heart, it always worked out. And I know you can relate to that.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, you know, I do a ton of advertising on social media for my various companies and stuff. You know, I get almost over 1 million views a day on social media across everything. And one of the things you'll never hear me talk about, which is so counterintuitive to almost every other real estate investor, is retirement. A lot of investors and gurus and everyone else, their biggest sales pitch is, hey, retire early, you know, get financial freedom and all this. And you'll never hear me talk about that because it's not really biblical. You know, nowhere in the Bible does it talk about, hey, you know, your work is done and then you chill the rest of your life. It's like, no, dude, Paul says you run the race until you die. And that's how it goes. And so,
my lands, Moses was 600 years old when he built the ark.
Yeah. And so you'll never hear me talk about retirement, and you'll never hear me say I'm done, because I'm going to die. And that's when I'm done.
Exactly. You know, I tell people, I said, you know, I'm passionate about my real estate investing business. I mean, but, you know, thank the Lord, for years, I'm in it 5 hours a week, maybe, and the team runs it. My passion, you know, like you yourself, I'm passionate about coaching and training. That's where I spend most of my time. And I said, you know what? I see myself on a stage or a platform or on a Zoom or whatever, sharing with other people what I know until I just can't talk anymore. Because I mean, my lands, that's the juice that gets me going. Back to the question 10 minutes ago, daily habits that you wouldn't let go of.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes along with faith. So I've been doing this routine literally for the last 7 years. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, in the last 7 years, I've had a ton of success. So I've got a morning routine that basically is an hour long. I read my Bible, I pray, I journal, and then I've got a planner. I actually have a planner that I created. My software and tech team built it out, and we give it to people for free. You can get it at wealthyway.com. And so it teaches people how to utilize like a planner and a journal every day. So everything's built in with the software. It's super cool. You guys will love it. So I do that for an hour. Along with that, I work out every morning, go to the gym about an hour long. I've always done that just from being an athlete, and I just can't stop. I wouldn't know life without working out. I'm not one of those people that has to like think about it or be like, I don't know if I'm gonna work out today. It's just like, it is what it is. Like, this is what I do. This is how I live. So I do those things. But one thing I actually have added to my routine now, I actually wake up an hour earlier, and I do that to go golf. So I picked up golf last year, and I'm really passionate about it as an athlete. And I kind of have this like weird like goal for no reason that maybe one day I could become pro at golf, even though it's like so far fetched. But let's see how it goes. So I practice golf for an hour every day. I go to the course and I practice, or I go play around a couple times a week. And like literally I wake up at 5, I knock out all that stuff from 5 to 10 for 5 hours. I'm just doing me. I'm spending time with God. I'm working out. I'm playing golf. I'm having fun. And by the time I get to the office at 10 a.m., like I've already accomplished more than everybody. And I'm just like, I've my spirit's filled. My health is filled. I'm feeling good. I had fun. And then I come to the office and I deal with all the crap that you do in business, right? Like business, just a bunch of problem solving, and that's all it is, right? So then I come to the office, and whatever I got that day from 10 to 5, that's what I got. And I leave the office every day at 5. That's it. I will not work past 5. If I didn't get everything done, that's on me for not being as efficient as I should have been, or hiring enough people, right? Like there's a way to do it. You just got to hire and delegate more. So, I get home, I get done at 5, go eat dinner with the family. We just recently hired a private chef, so that's been pretty sweet. The dinner served at 5:30. So when I leave that office, I better get home, or I'm missing dinner from the private chef, which my wife will kill me if I do. So I do that, hang out with the kids, put them to bed, hang with the wife, and wake up and do it again. And so I do that every weekday. Actually, I take that back. I don't do that every weekday. I do that Monday to Thursday. Friday, I don't go to the office anymore. I just play golf. So I do that same thing in the morning, play golf. And then Saturday and Sunday with the weekends, I don't go to the office at all. I don't work out either. Just kind of relax, let my body heal, hang with the family, go to church, and pretty much just do that every week. And I've done that for the last, golf is new, but everything else has been the same. I haven't worked weekends in 7 years. I work out every morning. I do all that stuff. And it's why today at 33, I'm literally the same weight and strength and everything that I was when I was 21, when I got drafted. Like nothing has changed.
Man, when I grow up, I want to be like you, Ryan Pineda. I'll tell you, you said something at the beginning of your story a moment ago, a few minutes ago, talking about your daily habits. Oh, by the way, what time you go to bed?
I don't sleep that much. I usually go to bed about 11. Go to bed at 11, wake up at 5. I usually get about 6 hours of sleep, give or take.
All right, I got you. You said something a few minutes ago as you were talking about your daily habits and et cetera. And that is, you said, I don't believe it's coincidence that you've enjoyed the success that you have, because your routine, your morning routine, your daily habits have been virtually the same for the past 7 years since you started in real estate. So I got to share this with you, man. The audience has heard this, but they won't mind hearing it again. My favorite definition of coincidence, and you're going to use this, Ryan. You're going to love it because you're faith-based.
Okay.
My definition of coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous.
God's
way of staying anonymous. So now we promised the listener that we were going to talk about private money. So we better hurry up.
Yes. Yeah. They're like, what are we talking about?
But you know what? What we've been talking about, we quite honestly couldn't have been talking about anything more important, because what we're talking about is foundational principles that the rest of our life, is built on, for strategies, resources, the way you do real estate investing, the way you raise private money, the way you negotiate deals, the way you find people for your team. All that stuff is great, but it doesn't matter unless you have built yourself personally on a foundation that's not on sand, but on rock. And so we're talking rock. We're talking rock kind of stuff. We're talking rock principles. And unless someone has the kind of stuff we're talking about, all the other stuff we can talk about doesn't matter because that ain't going to happen.
Yep.
You know? So let's talk about private money. So I like you like me, both of us have raised a lot of private money for our deals. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions that people always ask me when I'm a guest on their podcast when it comes to private money. So first of all, tell everybody first, what are we talking about when we say private money? Are we talking hard money? Are we talking institutional money? Are we talking any kind of banks? What do we mean when we say private money for the first time listener?
Yeah. So for me, private money would be friends, family, people who might follow you on social media. That's how I define it. We've raised a lot of private money for our house flips, for our apartment deals, and we're constantly raising money. In fact, I was talking to some people today about a deal we got closing here in a week that we got to still raise money for. So I'm constantly hitting people up. I want your money.
All right. So when it comes to raising private money, there's tons of questions and we don't have much time left. So I'll just sort of dive into it. So you sort of touched on it. I mean, where do you find these people? Where do you find these private lenders? You just answered it. It's relationship money. Do you raise more money from your own relationships, or do you raise more money from existing private lenders? In other words, in my world, I'm just curious about your world as compares to my world. In my world of private money, not one of my private lenders, first of all, had ever even heard of private money. They didn't even know what private money was. They'd never heard of self-directed IRAs. They didn't know about how to use retirement accounts and moving money over to a self-directed IRA. Is that your same experience? I mean, it's like I have attracted millions and millions and millions of dollars by being a teacher, and I've never chased money. You know, Ryan, I've never asked anybody for money. I've never asked anybody for money. I've just taught them, right, about what it is. They tell me how much they got. Maybe I got to introduce them to my self-directed IRA representative and get money moved over. I've never pitched a deal. I never pitched a deal in my life. It's like they got money. They got money sitting on the shelf. They're waiting for the phone call that says, I got great news. I can now put your money to work. And they say, okay, when do you need it? And when do I wire it? Does any of that sound familiar in your experience?
Yeah, 100%. So, I started raising private money back in 2017 was the first year I ever got private lender. The first 2 years I flipped houses, it was strictly hard money lenders and my credit cards. Really, that was how I funded them. And then I remember, a guy from my Bible study goes back to faith, and definitely not a coincidence. I knew he was well off. He was, retired and doing a lot of, work for the church and everything else. That was the next phase of his life. And, he reached out to me. He said, hey man, I know you're flipping houses and everything. I want to fund some of your deals. And I said, great. Here's kind of what I'm looking for. I just need somebody that could fund a full deal and give me deferred payments, cause like right now I'm strapped for cash. And so if I didn't have to make monthly payments and you could fund 100% of it, I could do a lot of flips. And sure enough, it was him that took that first bet on me. He did one deal. It was like 250 grand. Then he upped it to $500,000, then $1 million. Then he started telling his buddies about me. And it just kind of all allowed me to go from, 20 flips my second year to 50 my third year to 150 my fourth year, from his one, shot he took on me. And so during that time, I made my investors millions of dollars just turning it over flip after flip after flip. But, something interesting happened for me as time went on. I started getting pretty big on social media. And this was in 2021. At that point, I had over 1 million followers, I think. And a buddy of mine who's in Collective Genius too, Tim Bratz, said, hey, bro, you need to start a fund. Like, you could raise a ton of money. And I was like, I don't really know how. you know, what's the deal? Like, how does it all work? And so he brought me under his wing and showed me exactly how to start a fund. He hooked me up with his lawyers and everyone else. We actually did our very first deal together as co-GPs. He had the deal. We raised the money. He's managing it. And, first deal, we raised $6 million to buy a $20 million apartment, not bad for a first raise. And, my approach is very different than most because I do have a social media following. I literally just make videos and I'm like, here's a deal we got. If you want to invest, go to pinedacapital.com. And that's how we raise money. I don't network with other, or I don't like call people that like I know, because they already know at this point and they're probably already investors with me. The only reason I would call is if like we're in the position we're in right now where we have to close in the next week and like I don't have time to be like lenient. I got to go and like make something happen. So yeah, man, it's my approach is very different, but it works great because we're always getting new investors to our pool every day. And the existing investors who've been with me for years, they'll continue to invest because we've done a good job and we've been good shepherds of their money.
Yeah. So I want to share again verbally your capital fund, because I know there are people listening right now that want to invest with you. They want to be passive. They don't want to, like my private lenders. They don't want to negotiate deals. They don't want to find deals. They don't want to rehab deals. All they want to do is sit back and make money and do nothing. So I want to share your website for someone that wants to be passively making a great return. Go to www.pinedacapital.com. That's P as in Paul, INEDA, capital.com, and check out what Ryan has there for offer. Ryan, why do your investors like to invest in your Pineda Capital Fund?
Yeah, so I think for us, we actually have two different types of funds. So, we've got Pineda Capital, which is very much value add. And, a lot of the apartments need a lot of work and we go into them pretty much like a house flip. Like we know that they're not going to make money right away. We've got to do a lot of rehab and get them going. But, in the long haul, they're going to get stabilized. They're going to be just fantastic deals for the long term. Then we have another fund that we run where it's more stabilized assets, right? These ones are already good. They're cash flowing. We're going to obviously do a little bit of value add, but they're a lot safer deals with less upside. So yeah, I think it just kind of depends what you're looking for. But I would say the difference with us is a few things. Number one, we do get better deals than most people because of the network I have with Collective Genius, getting access to all these deals from all these guys. With my social media following, people know that I'm buying and they know I'll buy in multiple markets. So we get sent deals every day from operators who are looking for funding. And the third thing is just transparency. I post our deals on social media, like me walking through the apartments and showcasing what's going on and just talking about it. And so I think it's pretty cool to see that way. So we also had a golf tournament about a month ago where I invited investors to come hang out and network. So it's more like a mastermind than anything, where we all make money together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you and Tim Bratz, I've had Tim on my show more than once. He's a great guy. The two of you have got a lot in common, and I can see how you all are so well enjoying each other in business together and doing deals together. I knew you and I had a lot in common, but I didn't know we had this in common. My very first private lender was from church, and he started at $250,000.
Oh, not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence, man. You do remember you do remember the definition, right?
Yeah. It's God trying to stay anonymous.
You got it, man. Well, I tell you what, I have a question for you. Would you join me again on a future episode of this show?
Absolutely, man. This has been fun. We're going to have to give the audience maybe something new, maybe give them some tactical things about how you use social media to raise money. But yeah, I think there's a lot we can still talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you at our next upcoming Collective Genius Mastermind. Hopefully you'll be there, and I will as well. So, Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot before we shut her down. And that is, what's the best advice that you would want to share with a new real estate investor still looking to do their first deal?
And that's a tough one. It kind of depends what you want to do in real estate. I mean, obviously we're talking about syndications and apartments right now, but man, my advice is probably advice that other people have said multiple times. And I mean, that is just get a mentor. Like, trying to do your first deal on your own is so difficult, and very few are successful in doing it. And even if they are, it typically took them a long time. For me, you had mentioned right in the beginning when you gave that epic intro for me that I started in 2010 as a realtor, right? And it wasn't until 2015 that I finally flipped my first house. It took me 5 years. And like, you don't think during that time I wanted to flip? Like, I knew I could get good deals. I just didn't know the steps. I didn't know what private money was. I didn't know what hard money was. I didn't know anything. And so I had this vision that I wanted to do it. I just didn't know how. And the problem for me was I wasn't smart enough to go get a mentor. I just was too stubborn, and I just had these false beliefs about myself. And, it wasn't until 5 years later that I took action, and, now you're seeing the results. So I would say for anybody who wants to get into real estate, join a coaching program that, is doing what you want to do. If you want to get into apartments and syndication, there's some great ones out there for that. Like Tim, like we mentioned, if you want to flip houses or wholesale, or buy rentals, I would say join mine, futureflipper.com. That's what we teach over there. But if you're looking to become a great realtor or something else, or you want private money, go with Jay, right? Like, there's a lot of great coaches and mentors out there, but don't do it on your own. That's the worst thing you can do. So yeah, go get a mentor.
Well, you and I have got something else in common. When I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast, that's my advice. Because I tell you what, I screwed up the first 6 years I was in this business. From 2003, I didn't go to my first real estate investing actual conference and seminar until 2009. And the reason I went was because I lost all my funding at the bank and I didn't know what to do.
Out of necessity.
But you know what? Growth always takes place in the valley, doesn't it, my friend?
It does, 100%. So sometimes you got to go through some stuff to realize what you need.
Exactly. Ryan, I promised the audience you were going to be amazing, and you have not let me down. And I'm so blessed to have you here on the show, blessed to be in the mastermind with you, and blessed to call you my friend. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jay. It's been great.
All right. There you have it, my friend. Another amazing show. I'm Jay Connor, the Private Money Authority, and I need your help. Yes, I need your help. You probably know someone that would really benefit, be inspired, be motivated, be picked up and lifted up by just listening to this show. So if you would share this show with someone in your network, and it's going to make a difference in their life as it has yours. I really appreciate all the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the ratings, the 5 stars, all that good stuff. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure and click that bell, tap it, so you don't miss out on any more of the upcoming amazing shows. And again, you just don't know when Ryan Pineda is going to be here the next time, so you know you don't want to miss that. Here's to taking your business to the next level, and I'll see you right here on the next show. All right. Scott and Sharub, I love the intro, so we're not going to redo it. We